Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here. Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing? Hope you're all doing well. It's been a couple of hours, and I'm back with another live stream. Hope you guys are all doing well. Welcome to Reganelite's Global News, episode 99, guys. Episode 99. I have an announcement I want to make at the end of this live stream with regards to this series that I will let you guys know as well. So if you can stick to the end of this live stream, please feel free to do so. I also want to, for people who are new to this series, what we normally do is we cover news from outside the UK specifically. This is going to be a shorter than scheduled live stream, guys. So I'm only covering 4 stories tonight. This afternoon and just the funny memes after, guys. I've cut it to 4 stories just in case I go too far out. Unfortunately, there is some other things that I need to chase up, but I wanted to at least get this out for you guys. But like I said, I do have something announcement regarding this series that I will let you guys know at the end of the show. So if you can stick with me to that, it'd be greatly appreciated. Good afternoon, Leafskin. I'm sorry you're feeling pretty meh today. I hope your day gets better. I honestly do. I'm sorry to hear that. Ellie, a good afternoon to you. Billy Kershaw, good afternoon to you. And Mel, good afternoon to you. Hope you guys are all doing well. Yeah, I generally mean this, Leafskin. I hope your day gets better, whatever it is. You know, sometimes we all have those meh days where we just don't. Sometimes you just don't feel up for it, or you just feel like, yeah, I just don't feel like doing sort of thing. We all get those days, you know, so it's totally understandable to feel that way there, of course. So totally understand. Goddamn camera needs work adjusting here. Never mind. Anyway, guys, I want to start with this really interesting piece here that I've got here for you guys. So it's quite ground shaking. It's nothing to do with America, guys. No. It's just about the European Union and India, guys. So the mother of all deals, how India, the EU trade deal creates $27 trillion market. A major agreement reached after 20 years of negotiations and during ongoing tensions with the United States. This is huge. I can't tell you just how huge this is going to be for the European Union. This will benefit India greatly. This will benefit the European Union greatly. And this will be them shoring up more of that, taking a big chunk of the global market here as well. Kirsty, good to see you there. Hope you are doing well as well. Thank you for popping in. Anybody else who are lurking in the chats. What this means, obviously, of how beneficial this can be in the long run for both India and the European Union is very, very good. Obviously, as ourselves sitting on the outside the EU, it sucks greatly, and for the United States. But I actually think, you know, even just taking aside what's happening in America, what's happening with the UK right now, I think just in terms of overall, this just once again increases the power of the European Union, the EU. And while yes, in terms of they still don't have the army that they want to have, and I do believe that it will come at some point. It's all about the desire there. I just hope it gets better. I hope they do continue to build up on defense and learn to rely less and less on the United States. But I just think in terms of how this can really help shield them from the United States, because the one thing the European Union does not want to be do in any way, shape, or form is being bullied by the US. And India, of course, has obviously been threatened many times by the United States because of its trade deals with Russia. I'm not happy that they still continue to trade with Russia. They still continue to do so despite all this. So that context is important to highlight as well here. So how much of this deal I wonder how much of this deal actually may in a knockoff effect benefit Russia in some sort of way as well here. User, good to see you there. Hope you are doing well. And Saz, it's great to see so many lovely people. I wasn't expecting many people to turn out for this live stream, so I appreciate people coming out. I really do. Like I said, this ain't going to be a very long one today, guys. We're only covering a couple of stories today. So let's read a bit more into this deal, guys. So India and the European Union have signed a free trade agreement that both sides have held as the mother of all deals. So the agreement announced today came together over nearly 2 decades of intermediate negotiations and during a geo-economic crisis triggered by the United States President Donald Trump's trade war. And I actually think that the situation around the president and Donald Trump, I think that helped escalate things for both benefit of India and the European Union. That probably speeded things up a bit more as well. I mean, you've been negotiating for 20 years. 20 years, that's a long time. You know, there's a lot of detail, a lot of information. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to go into the weeds of it, but I'm sure there'll be people out there who will break this down much better than I will when it comes to this deal. But this is something they've been working on both sides for 20 years. That's quite significant here. Russians will be a bit cheesed off. Are you sure? I'm not sure, because Russia still trades with India. Russia still trades with India. That hasn't stopped Russia and India trading. Did Russia run out of cheese? Said Ellie. Russia runs out of a lot of things, to be fair. One thing they won't run out of is ice and snow right now. The deal between India and the 27-nation EU covers about 2 billion people, represents a combined market of nearly $27 trillion. That's a lot of money. And about 25% of the global gross domestic product, GDP. So the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and the European Council President Antonio Costa joined the Indian Prime Minister Modi in New Delhi on Monday as honorary guests for Republic Day in its annual military parade. Quote, this agreement will bring major opportunities for the people of India and Europe. Modi said that while addressing an energy conference virtually on Tuesday before an Indian-EU summit. Europe and India are making history today, von der Leyen wrote in a post on X. We have created a free trade zone for 2 billion people, with both sides set to benefit. We will grow our strategic relationship to be even stronger. The deal is expected to significantly reduce tariffs for India and the EU. That's very good. That will be very, very positive for them. So what is in the deal, and how will Trump, who slapped India with a 50% tariff last year as part of punishment for continuing to buy Russian oil, take it? So what is in the deal? What does the deal cover, and how significant is it? The deal is India's largest and most comprehensive trade agreement and covers goods, services and investment across the EU customs union. In 2023, the EU withdraws a generalized scheme of preferences, GPS benefits, for India, exposing its exporters to higher tariffs. The new deal, analysis noted, could give India an edge in several sectors, including textiles, pharmaceuticals, machinery, steel, petroleum products, and electrical equipment. Overall, the EU is giving India access to 144 service subsectors, while India is opening 102 subsectors to the EU, including a financial, maritime, and telecommunications industry. Today, Modi told Indian workers and industry leaders in sectors such as textiles, gems, and jewelry that the agreement will prove very helpful to you, adding that it will not only boost manufacturing in India, but also expand India's service sector. Quote, this free trade agreement will strengthen confidence in India for every business and every investor in the world. India is working extensively on global partnerships in all sectors, Modi said. The final draft of the trade agreement must still pass secure legal scrutiny in Brussels and in New Delhi, and may only become operational next year. Breshkar Delart, a trade economics who has been involved in multiple Indian trade negotiations. So it's not done yet, but there's one or two hoops still, but this is major, really, really major. Annie, a former Indian diplomat who has dealt with regional trading blocs, described the trade deal as excellent, providing professional market access while taking care of the bureaucratic labyrinth of the European Union. Quote, unlike 20 years ago, today's India has the capacity to work together with the Europeans and provide a good market for them. There'll be much more to look other than the cheapest wines or BMWs, including trade investment. It's a very significant deal for both India and the EU, and a major step towards consolidating India's trade and economic relations with its largest trade partners. Now, one of the things that India has always had is has one of the biggest populations on the planet, and you know this will enhance India as a, you know, India's always been seen as a you know, not the top dog in terms of powerhouses economies, but they've definitely been up there because of their population. And this will only strengthen them as well. And if relationship state remains quite strong between the two, it could really benefit India in the long term. Obviously, one of the things that I do have to mention is that this government, the Indian government, are very much, shall we say, a bit racism, shall we say? or have a problem with other religions in their country. There's definitely a problem of discrimination with this Indian government, especially of how they've been treating other religions apart from their own Hinduism within the country. We know there's been a large increase in discrimination over the past couple of years, which really hasn't been really been dealt with, and then has actually been allowed to fester and grow, leaving more and more people of other religious beliefs find themselves being a bit exiled. Even though that the majority of the population is Hinduism, there's still plenty of other cultures there, and they're kind of being pushed out a little bit in India. So, and obviously its leader, there are questions about the leader, because he's been in power for, how long has Modi been in power for? He's been in power for quite a while now, as well. Crucially, Dhaka said this deal represents an opportunity for both sides to diversify and look beyond the US and grow beyond their dependence of the American market. And this is also a big thing here, obviously, moving away from the American market, because literally everything all revolves around America. Well, this is one way of getting around that, and America will be looking at this with dismay, because this means that they can trade more with each other without relying again on the on America there. So is India opening its much protected automobile industry? So India has been criticised in the past for its protectionist approach to the automobile sector, including by Tesla owner Elon Musk. It has been levying tariffs as high as 110% on foreign vehicles. Negotiations to reach trade deals between India and the EU broke down in 2013 over New Delhi's reluctance to open its automobile sector. Under the deal announced on Tuesday, however, New Delhi will open its domestic automobile market to EU imports, slashing tariffs on most cars from the EU to 30 to 35%, which are to then be phased down to 10% over several years. Interesting. It is understood that EU cars priced below €15,000 are excluded from the deal, which will remain subject to higher tariffs. Cars costing more than this will be diverted into three categories with each quotas and separate tariffs. Electric vehicles, however, will be excluded from the import duty reductions for the first 5 years to protect investment by domestic Indian electric car manufacturers. After that, imports from the EU will be restricted to 160,000 internal combustion engines and 90,000 electric vehicles per year. Despite these safeguards, shares in India car makers dipped by about 1.6% after the announcement of the trade deal. So how will the deal benefit the European Union? So Indian tariffs on 30% of goods imported from the EU will fall to zero immediately. That's very good for India. Overall tariffs on 96.6% of EU goods exports to India will be eliminated or reduced, EU officials have said. The deal will save up to €4 billion, that's $4.74 billion, a year in duties on European products. That's very good. Besides the relaxation of tariffs on car imports from the EU, existing Indian tariffs of up to 44% on machinery, 22% on chemicals, and 11% on pharmaceuticals will, for the most part, be eliminated. Tariff on EU aircraft and spacecraft will also be eliminated for almost all products, while those on optimal, medical, and surgical equipment will be eliminated for 90% of products. This is reducing. This is literally what they said: free trade, pretty much between the two countries from the looks of it here. Majority of it from the looks of it. Meanwhile, spirits and wines imported to India from the EU, currently tariffed at 150%, will be cut to 20 and 30% for wines, 40% for spirits, and 50% for beer. India will also provide improved access for EU firms in financial and maritime services, and both sides will simplify customs rules and provide stronger intellectual property protections. So how will this deal benefit India? The EU will scrap all tariffs on 90% of Indian goods, and within 7 years that will be extended to 93% of Indian goods. 93%. That's about as close as being tariff-free as you possibly can get. And this is a non-EU country. Among those benefiting from zero tariffs immediately are marine seafood products, such as shrimp and frozen fish, currently levied at about 26%, chemicals 12.8%, plastics and rubbers at 6.5%, leather and footworks 17%, textiles 12%, apparel 4%, base metals 10%, and gems and jewelry at 4%. There will be partial tariff cuts and quotas for about 6% of Indian goods, bringing the EU average tariff rate down from 3.8% to 0.1%. Overall, 99.5% of bilateral trade will benefit from some form of tariff concession. India is still seeking improvements on tariff-free steel import quotas. and the outcome of these talks is due by June the 30th before EU rules take effect on July the 1st. Under the deal, as it stands, India will be allowed to export 1.6 million tons of steel to the EU duty-free, but this is only about half of what it exports annually at present. The EU has not only granted India an exception from its carbon border adjustment mechanism, that's the CBAM, which taxes carbon-intensive goods, those that require large amounts of energy to produce, such as steel, cement, fertilizer, and electricity. Only countries that are associated with the EU, such as Norway, Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Switzerland, are exempt from these due to their participation in the EU's emissions trade system or related agreement. Countries whose emissions trading systems are linked directly to the EU, such as Switzerland, are also exempt. However, India will be able to negotiate this if the EU grants flexibility to another country. So how significant is the India-EU trade now? So it says the US remains the biggest overall trading partner for both India and the EU. However, over the past decade, trade goods between India and the EU has grown substantially, rising from about $74 billion in 2020 to $136 billion in 2024-2025, making the EU's India's largest goods trade partner. India has a favourable trade surplus with the EU of more than $15 billion, as its exports of $75 billion outpaces the imports of $60 billion. EU exports heavily on machinery, transport equipment, and chemicals, while India mostly exports chemical-based base metals, mineral products, and textiles. The two sides hope to increase that to about $200 billion by 2030. So from 2019 to 2024, India's EU trade service also grew, with India's export rising from $22.5 billion to $44 billion, while EU exports increased from about $17 billion to $34 billion. The two mainly trade in business, consulting, and IT services. India is the EU's 9th largest trade partner, accounting for 2.4% of its total trade, compared with 17.3% for the US and 14.6% for China. As for 2024, 931,000 Indian resides in the EU, according to the Indian government. Comparative figures for the EU living in India are not available, apparently. The EU says 60,000 European companies operate in India, while about 1,500 Indian companies have a presence in the EU. That could increase as a result of this deal. So do both economies have tensions with the EU? Yes, on several fronts. Despite Modi having relatively good relations with the US president, India is one of the countries most heavily tariffed by the US at 50% on goods as a result of Trump's trade war. Half of that is punishment for India's continued purchase of Russia's crude oil, which the White House official said is financing the Kremlin's war on Ukraine. EU tensions with the Trump administration have been building as well, particularly over Trump's insistence that the US must be allowed to buy Greenland, which is territory of EU's member Denmark. And this month, Trump threatened additional tariffs of 10%, rising 25% in June, against 8 European countries that have objected to Trump's demand to buy Greenland. Both Greenland and Denmark have repeatedly stated that the island, which is politically part of Europe but is geographically located in North America, is not for sale. However, during the World Economic Forum in Davos in Switzerland last week, Trump walked back on this threat and said he would not impose the tariffs. Instead, he said constructive talks are laid bare for the basis of a framework and an agreement over Greenland. The EU is still subject to up to 15% tariffs by the US under the EU-US trade deal signed last year. Experts said the finalization of the EU trade agreement has been expedited, in part, in response to this pressure from the Trump administration. The global trade disruptions have become the norm, and there is an urgent necessary for both India and the EU to provide a certain degree of certainty for their businesses. The US is mired in uncertainty, and one just doesn't know what is going to happen tomorrow. So how will the US react to this? The White House has already criticized the agreement. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent lashed out at the EU over its pact with New Delhi. Quote, "We have put 25% tariffs on India for buying Russian oil. Guess what happened last week? The Europeans signed a trade deal with India," Bessent told ABC News on Sunday. "They, the European unions, are financing the war against themselves," he added. Is that comment true? Is that statement true? I think there might be some truth to that. I wonder how Zelensky and Ukraine feel about this deal. I think that's a good question. That is a very interesting question. Particularly while India still trades with Russia. While the EU signed a trade deal with the US fairly quickly after Trump announced his trade war last year, New Delhi is still trying to negotiate one with Washington. It's also seeking to diversify trade to other parts of the world. India has taken a policy of strategic patience in dealing with Trump's trade war. The deal with the EU is part of the same process to cushion the impact and find new partners. Harsh Pant, vice president of the New Delhi-based Observer Research Foundation think tank, told Al Jazeera, "You have two big economy players coming together, which is a signal to the US that they're willing to move forward with their own agenda. There is quite an extraordinary geopolitical realignment between India and the EU," Pat said. "The Trump effect has accelerated the process of this convenience, and we are going to see more strategic engagement between the two." And right before Davos as well, we also had the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney obviously agree in principle a deal with China as well. So we already had that, and now we've had this massive deal obviously barring any bumps along the road, a massive deal that would benefit greatly hugely to both the European Union and India here. There is obviously that bit at the end there where it does bother me that a lot, that I just wish if India wasn't helping Russia in any way, shape or form, if they weren't trading with Russia there, I just think if that wasn't happening, I think that probably it does bother me. Because, how I know, I'm sure you guys feel the same way as I feel about what's happening in Ukraine, and we want to see an end to this war as soon as possible. And one of the best ways to do that is to choke the life out of Russia. But India, like China, are not helping themselves by trading with Russia, allowing them to still have the war being funded. And while this is obviously beneficial for the European Union in the sense that the US is becoming an unreliable partner and will continue to become more and more of an unreliable partner down the road, the EU obviously needs to look at securing its own growth domestic product, securing its own businesses, giving confidence there to them, as well as continuing to build up a defense of its own in the future here. And that's kind of the catch-22 situation that we find ourselves in with this one. So while there's a part of me that's like really happy, there's a part of me is like, if I just kind of wish India wasn't trading, with Russia. So that's the kind of the part that really sticks out to me there on this. Sarah, good to see you there, person impersonate, and Vicky. Hope you guys are all doing well. But yeah, what do you guys honestly think about this deal? Let me see if anyone said anything about it. This is playground politics, telling you who can be friends with America can go do one. Yeah, that is. They're not happy that there's been a massive trade deal that doesn't involve them. They're not happy about it at all. Well, you completed the grid and that blocked Russia. India have not ceased any trading with Russia as far as I'm aware. As far as I'm aware there, Ellie, unfortunately. I think the ex-colonial master will want a bit of that. Watch the space, says Stephen Lee. Who are you referring to there? Are you talking about Donald Trump? Luckily, we have Brexit, so no benefit for us, says Kirsty. Yeah, Brexit, another Brexit benefit. Yeah, thanks, Kirsty. Yeah, absolutely. There's only one question, deal or no deal. I think it's a deal. I think it's a done deal. I think it's just one or two tiny hurdles, but I think they're done with this. I think this deal's definitely going to happen at this point now, looking at it there. Definitely think so. Speaking of deals, well, not really a deal. So, what's been happening in America? This is the latest I've got at the moment in with regards to the Minneapolis shooting, guys. So this is from the Associated Press here. The Minneapolis shooting scrambles the Second Amendment policies for Trump. So what is this about, guys? So one of the defenses that they have with regards to the shooting on the weekend that they were trying to argue is that the man should not have had a gun. He shouldn't have brought a gun to a protest. You shouldn't be brandishing a gun around ICE agents. You're prescribing yourself as a terrorist by being a threat, to our law enforcement agencies by carrying a weapon, to a protest. You shouldn't be doing that, yada, yada, yada. That kind of language coming out of the Trump administration pissed off a lot of MAGA supporters, and it actually pissed off the National Rifle Association, the NRA. They were not happy about this. In fact, they were actually pretty pissed because it undermines the Second Amendment. And that's one amendment that those on the right value more than any. Rather, more than their freedom, guys. The right to bear arms is one of the most sacred things that they care about. They care about that amendment very, very dearly. And the fact that it's being used to weaponize, they're trying to use it as an excuse to kind of say, like, you know, you can't carry a gun close to ICE agents. Well, the fuck, I can carry a gun next to ICE agents. Of course I can. You know, I'm allowed to do so. It's my Second Amendment. And, yeah, it's just, yeah, not very good, shall we say. In terms of the actual shooting itself, an absolute disgusting and outrageous thing. Now, initially what I've been hearing is that they've been dumbing down. But then I'm hearing conflicting reports. So I've first heard reports that they're planning to slowly pull away from Minneapolis and actually give up the goose here in Minneapolis and leave. But I'm also hearing that opposite things, that they're also ramping up. So I'm not sure which way they're going right now. One thing is for sure, they're definitely things right now are not whatever they do, it's not going to please anyone. But to be honest, I don't think they give a damn anyway. They regulate the Westmongers and your unelected king, says Stephen Lee. Well, I'm not a fan of monarchy anyway, to be fair. He went to aid a woman, poor lad. Yeah, he went to aid a woman. Yeah, he went to save the woman. We've all seen the footage. If you haven't seen the footage, I do recommend checking it out. But yeah, there. Daily Blase, good to see you. I hope you're doing well. More than their own lives, even Charlie Kirk was a supporter of guns. Yeah. A tweet resurfaced of that. I think a tweet resurfaced of Charlie Kirk about that as well, Sarah. Yeah, as well. So prominent Republicans and gun rights advocates helped elicit a White House turnabout this week after blistering over the administration's characterization of Alex Pretty, the second person killed this month by a federal officer in Minneapolis, as responsible for his own death because he lawfully possessed a weapon. The death produced no clear shifts in U.S. gun politics or policies, even as President Donald Trump shuffled his lieutenants in charge of his militarized immigration crackdown. But important voices in Trump's coalition have called for a thorough investigation of Pretty's death, while also criticizing inconsistencies in some Republicans' Second Amendment stances. If the dynamic persists, it could give Republicans problems as Trump heads into a midterm election year, with voters already growing skeptical of his overall immigration approach. The concern is acute enough that Trump's top spokeswoman sought Monday to reassert his brand as a staunch guns rights supporter. Yeah, they would have done that. They would have really bent over backwards to say to people, no, we're not threatening the Second Amendment. We're not threatening your gun rights, guys. We're not doing that. No. Yeah, they definitely want to make that very, very clear because they don't want to upset the Second Amendment rights here. I still think, yeah, they're going to try in some way, shape or form to rig the election in their favour or try to cancel elections, the midterms, something in some way, better forms. They're going to try very hard to do so. How they're going to do it, I don't know. But I just feel like it's not a case of we're just going to be having the midterms and that's that. No. You're going to have vote rigging. You're going to have voter tampering. You're going to have something. Something is going to happen. That's going to try it, or they're going to accuse of voter fraud or something. They're going to do absolutely everything to either undermine these midterms coming up, or they're going to delay it or cancel it because of something X, Y, Z. That this is not going to be a perfectly legitimate midterm elections in any way, shape, or form. The president supports the Second Amendment rights of a law-abiding American citizens. Absolutely, the White House press secretary told reporters. Levin qualified that when you are bearing arms and confronted by law enforcement, you are raising the risk of force being used against you. This is their way of putting it here, of saying, we're not saying you can't right to bear arms, but what we're saying is don't use it against law enforcement, which, by the way, they didn't. The guy didn't anyway, as we all know. That still marked a retreat from the administration's previous message about the shooting of Pretty. It came the same day as the president dispatched Border Caesar Tom Homan to Minnesota, seemingly elevating him over Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and Border Patrol Chief Greg Posado, who had been in charge of Minneapolis. Within hours of Pretty's death on Saturday, Bodano suggested Pretty wanted to massacre law enforcement, and Noem said Pretty was brandishing a weapon and acted violently towards officers. I don't know of any peaceful protesters that show up with a gun and ammunition rather than a sign. No, I'm said. Yeah, that was not a very good comment. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller. The Grinch himself. The architect of Trump's mass deportation effect went further on next, declaring Pretty an assassin. Yeah, because he was definitely an assassin. Yeah, he was a nurse. He was a nurse. He saved people's lives. He was not a murderer. He wasn't a terrorist. He was a nurse. And he saved people's lives. What he did, his work that he did was very highly respected. And not just any nurse. One for veterans. And you don't mess with veterans. At least you shouldn't. Bystander videos contradict each claim, instead showing Pretty holding a cell phone and helping a woman who had been pepper sprayed with a federal officer. Within seconds, Pretty was sprayed too and taken to the ground by multiple officers. No video disclosed thus far showing him unholstering his concealed weapon. There is literal footage of the officers taking the gun out of his holster. There is footage literally showing that, which he had a Minnesota permit to carry. It appeared that one officer took Pretty's gun and walked away just before the shots began. Yeah, they definitely took the gun away. As multiple videos went online and went viral online on television, Vice President J.D. Vance reposted Miller's assessment while also sharing an alleged photo of the gunman's gun loaded with 2 additional full magazines. Yeah, he got J.D. Vance. He got slaughtered on CNN for trying to defend some of this as well. I can't remember what he said, but he got quite embarrassed, to be fair, as well. Can't remember what it was he said. There in the ICU. Thank you, Vicky. He worked in the ICU. A VA nurse of that, taking care of military and federal, says Duck. Yeah. What about Bear Grylls, says Ellie? What about Bear Grylls? What about Bear Grylls? The National Rifle Association, which has backed Trump 3 times, released a statement that began casting blame on Minnesota Democrats and accused it of stoking protests. But the group lashed out after a federal prosecutor in California said on X that if you approach law enforcement with a gun, there's a high likelihood you will be legally justified in shooting you. That analysis, the NRA said, is dangerous and wrong. FBI Director Kash Patel magnified the blowback on Sunday on Fox News Sunday morning. No one, Patel says, can bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines or any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple. No, it's not. That's against the Second Amendment. Eric Pratt, Vice President of Gun Owners America, was insidious. I have attended protest rallies while armed and no one got injured, he said on CNN. Conservative officials around the country made some connections between the First and Second Amendments. Showing up at a protest is very American. Showing up with a gun is very American. State Republican Jeremy Faskin, who leads the GOP caucus in Tennessee, said on X. Trump's first-term Vice President Mike Pence called for a full and transparent investigation of this officers-involved shooting. Liberals, conservatives, and non-partisan experts noted how the administration has responded differently from past conservative positions involving protest and weapons. Multiple Trump supporters were found to have weapons on them during the January 6, 2021 attack. On the US Capitol, Trump issued blanket pardons to all of them. Exactly. Like, what's the difference here? Oh, there are friends. Yeah. Republicans were critical in 2020 when Mark and Priska McCloskey had to pay fines after pointing guns at protesters who marched through their St. Louis neighborhood after the police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis. And then there's Kyle Rittenhouse, a counter-protester acquitted after fatally shooting 2 men and injuring another in Kensington, Wisconsin during a post-Floyd protest. You remember Carl Whittington and how he was made a hero on the right? Trey Gowen, a former Republican congressman and attorney for Trump during one of his first-term impeachments. Alex Pretty's firearm was lawfully carried. He never brandished it. Adam Winkler, a UCLA law professor who has studied the history of gun debates, said the fallout shows how tribal we've become. Republicans spent years talking about the Second Amendment as it means to fight government's tyranny, he said. The moment someone who thought to be from the left, they abandon that principled stance, Winkler said. Yeah. Because it's all about left and right to them. It's when it comes to the Trump administration, it's all about them versus us. But the problem is that when you undermine your own policies, your own things, you kind of get you have your own people questioning you. Democrats who have criticised the opening and concealing carrying laws for years, Winker added, are not amplifying that position after Pretty's death. No, and they should not do so. They should not do so whatsoever. But it is interesting to see how the situation around the guns has kind of taken effect on this situation here. The woman got pepper sprayed instantly as a nurse to run to her aid. Yeah, as he would do, because, you know, someone got pepper sprayed. And, yeah, for no reason. Absolutely. They want everyone to be carrying it and angry, says Vicky. Yep, they want anger from these people. They want anger from these people, that is for sure. Bear squirrels, says Ellie. Bear squirrels? What were you? Bear squirrels? Beer squirrels, is that? No, bear squirrels, you're saying. Yes. Okay, you guys talking about something else there. Okay, let's have a look at the next story, guys, here. Can't believe we've already gone 36 minutes. I thought it would be less than that. Like I say, I do apologise. I did say this was going to be a short live stream. I did say that. So, very interesting legal cases taking place today in the United States, guys. Now, while Australia has banned social media for under 16s, and the UK is looking like it's heading in that direction as well, as is the French government, and the French government is also looking into that as well. This story has come up here. So, Meta, TikTok, and YouTube face landmark trial over youth addiction claims. This marks the beginning of a legal onslaught that could erode big tech's long-standing defense. Interesting. So, tech giants Meta, TikTok, and YouTube are facing a landmark trial over allegations that their platforms negatively impact mental health among young, marking the first time their companies will argue their case before a jury. The case kicks off today in California's Superior Court, Los Angeles County, with the jury selection process expected to take at least a few days, as 75 potential jurors are questioned each day through at least Thursday. Yeah, well, that's definitely going to be... The jury selection is going to be tough, because there's going to be... Because, like, a lot of people use social media... You need to have a balance of whoever the jurors are going to be. Some who use social media and some don't use it at all. It's going to be an interesting balance for sure there. The trial is considered a test case for thousands of other lawsuits seeking damages for social media harms. A fourth company named in the lawsuit, Snapchat parent company Snap Inc., settled the case last week for an undisclosed sum. Ooh. Executives, including Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, are expected to testify at the trial, which will last up to 6 to 8 weeks. The plaintiff is a 19-year-old woman from California, identified as KGM, who said she became addicted to the company's platforms at a young age. And importantly, she claims that this was done through deliberate design choices made by companies that sought to make their platforms more addicted to children to boost their profiles. She alleges the apps fuel her depression and suicidal thoughts and is seeking to hold the companies liable. Her lawsuit is the first of several cases expected to go to trial this year that center on what the plaintiffs call social media addiction among children. Borrowing heavily from the behavioral and neurobiological techniques used by slot machines and exploited by the cigarette industry, defendants deliberately embedded in their products and an array of design features aimed at maximizing youth engagement to drive advertising revenue, the lawsuit says. Experts have drawn similarities to the big tobacco trial that led to a 1998 settlement requiring cigarette companies to pay billions of dollars in healthcare costs and restrict marketing targeting minors. This argument, if successful, could sidestep the company's First Amendment shield and Section 230, which protects tech companies from liability and material posted on their platforms. The tech companies have hired lawyers who have represented corporations in high-profile litigations involving addictions. They disputed the claims that their products deliberately harm children, citing a bevy on safeguards that they have added over the years and arguing that they are not liable for content posted on their sites by third parties. you're not liable for it, but you're the owners of the platform. You are the owners of the platform at the end of the day, right? You are the owners of the platform at the end of the day there. Since at least 2018, Meta has sponsored parent workshops about teen online safety at dozens of high schools across the US. TikTok is also sponsoring similar gatherings and offered tutorials on features for parents, including the option to limit screen time at night. Julie Sceffo, founders of Mothers Against Media Addiction, which supports these smartphone bans in schools, told the news agency Reuters that the tech companies were using every lever of influence that you can imagine. It will be very confusing for parents who to trust, she added. France's lower house on Monday voted in favour of banning children aged below 15 years from social media. The legislation will now go to the Senate before a final vote in the lower house. So yeah, France is heading in that direction. Australia in December had become the first country to ban children aged below 16 on social media platforms. Countries including the UK, Denmark, Spain and Greece are also studying a social media ban. This is going to be a very interesting case. It's going to be a very interesting case here. What do you guys honestly think? Do you think they have a chance against these media companies? Generally, what do you guys think? What's with the latest trend of shower in the dark taking over TikTok? Kids are crazy these days. This is Kirsty. I don't spend all day on TikTok, so that must be something that's on your algorithm, not mine. That was a public information top tip from Indie Dux's impersonator. Not really anybody thinking about it. How long until martial law? No midterm then. I don't know about martial law. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, he could impose the Insurrection Act, Donald Trump, but it's not going to change anything there. So, honestly, like, I'm kind of 50-50 about how whether they're going to be able to win this case or not, because I would like to think that that these social media companies will be held more accountable, because here's the thing: they always hide behind something. They never take real ownership. Social media companies don't take real enough ownership and responsibility when it comes to what happens on their platforms. Now I don't want to use me as an analogy, but you know, children are super addicted to social media these days. It's absolutely insane. It's really, really scary. It's really, really scary indeed. Do I think social media companies have made progress in this? Yes, I do. I think social media companies have made significant progress when it comes to protections of children. Can more be done? Absolutely. I don't know whether or not they can win this case or not. I think it's a real toss-up of whether it can or can't here. But Regan, let's not forget you were demonetized by such powerful companies, but you're still here, luckily. Yeah, Stephen Lee, my case is you can't make respectfully, you can't make the same case about my situation with regards to this. I've been demonetized not because of my content. I've been demonetized for something entirely different. It's one thing you have to be demonetized on my content. It's another when it's something to do with accounts. Like, it's nothing to do with my content. If it was something to do with my content, they would have said so. My demonetization has nothing to do with my accounts. What we're talking about is what we're talking about in this instance here. We're talking about, you know, what young children are seeing on social media, and where this is something that I generally, this is why I've leaned more and more to banning social media for people under 16 or under 15 for children in the UK. I've leaned more and more to it because the main reason is the addiction. You know, gambling is an addiction. Alcohol can be an addiction. Cigarette smoking is an addiction. And social media is an addiction. It is another addiction. And there has to be, and if these companies are only thinking about one thing: engagement and profit, and driving engagement and driving profit. You know, there's a reason why Facebook pays Meta pays me with my wrestling page to drive engagement on my page, to drive more people to it, to keep people on Meta. That's what they pay me to do. They pay me. I hit 30,000 followers this week on the Facebook page, guys. They want me to continue to drive that engagement, and they pay me for it. I know people might not like that, and you guys are more than willing to criticize me for doing that, but they pay me to do that. You know, I'm not gonna bullshit you guys. You know, they pay content creators like myself to keep engagement on those platforms. And at the end of the day, it's up to people whether they want to continue to be engaged in those social medias or not. You know, I can't stress how unhealthy it is. There's nothing wrong with sitting there's nothing wrong with spending like 20 minutes to an hour or whatever looking on your phone. I don't think that's the end of the world. But if you're spending hours and on ends sitting up at night and just staring at your phone for hours on end, yeah, that's a problem. And especially for children. So this is about youth addiction claims. There is an addiction for social media. And the problem is that these are third-party companies. These companies are doing it for engagement and for money and for power and influence over the publics. They have huge sways of influence, not just in politics, but across from all sorts of different publics in the US, UK, Canada, all over the world. They have huge amounts of influence because they can control the algorithms to steer the conversations of how people want to think a certain way. That's a cause for concern. And you should be concerned about that. The shutdown from Trick from New Year's of 25 should have been taught enough first to keep people feeling like they're lacking. Okay, then I know, but my point is what you're now talking about, Sir Stephen Lee. My point is what you're now talking about. If it's a case, Stephen, that you're worried that YouTube might deny me remonetizing because of this I'm talking about, I doubt that very, very much. It will be simply because of my case. While YouTube is owned by Google, you know, the people that run YouTube are not the same people who made the decision about my Google about what happened to my Google account that led to me being demonetized. Look, I appreciate where you're coming from, Stephen. I really do, honestly. I'm using this as therapy for my wing type. Low means moving fingers, says Cindy Duckmel. Okay. Because people need to know how tall Jesus was at 3 a.m. in the morning. Mine's racing, lack of sleep, and children unable to concentrate in class, says Kirsty Hamilton. Phones need to be taken away from the schools. Yeah, that has to be without a shadow of a doubt. Their phones need to be taken away from them at schools. And yeah, there needs to be. I'm sure most countries are doing this, but yeah, we need to make sure that we have counter programs for children who are highly addicted to social media, and give them alternatives. And not only that, it's killing a lot of it's killing a lot of children's brains. It's killing a lot of children's brains. You know, I spoke before, guys, about how we have one more story we'll get to before we wrap up, guys. I spoke before about how some of the videos, and you literally just pointed it out, Kirsty Hamilton, about like how they watch like a video that doesn't, like, it's no way educational, that doesn't benefit them. Like, there's nothing wrong with a bit of it's nothing wrong with a bit of like a bit of banter, a bit of funny things every now and then, but the TikTok that you see in the UK, I know it's changed now. They changed it now in the US, but the TikTok you see in the Western media in comparison to China is very, very different, because they designed it. The Chinese designed their TikTok specifically to educate their children. The TikTok that you see here is not designed to educate you. It's designed to make you more stupid. It's designed to distract you from what you're supposed to be doing, and that is learning and developing. So, but that's just TikTok. Is YouTube perfect? Absolutely not. Uh, okay, I wish you luck, mate. Don't let them get you down. Yeah, I'm sure I'll be let down in some way, shape, or form, Stephen. Yeah, I'm sure I will. I'm just grateful that I have two sources. I'm just grateful I have an income from that as well. You know, from well, obviously I'm not getting it from YouTube right now, but I do have a second source of income. You know, shouldn't need pointing out that kids need to focus on their education. Yeah, exactly, user. We shouldn't have to point it out, but the problem is that it's happening, and there's also like. We can't, like, yes, do the parents need to take some ownership and responsibility when it comes to managing their children's time on their devices? Absolutely. Absolutely. They need to take that. But you can't put it all on the parents as well. And you certainly can't throw it all on the teachers. You know, my partner works in a daycare. Some of you guys may know. My partner works in a daycare. And she And she while the children, most of the children are too young for social media, like she hears the stories, like she has connections to teachers, she knows what's going on. You know, my partner, my brother's partner is a teacher. Like they have to like, there's a lot of these kids who spend just, you know, there's a lot of parents out there. There's a lot of bad parents. I'm sorry I have to say this, guys. I really hate to say this. There are a lot of bad parents out there. I'm going off a tangent, but I need to get this off my chest. There's a lot of bad parents out there who, rather than raise their kids, they put a tablet in front of them and they just go about their business. They just stick a tablet in front of them. And it's just not healthy. There's nothing wrong with giving them some time on it, but some of them just give way too much time on it. Way too much time on it. Breaking your spot on about the Chinese TikTok, the Western one is completely different. It is. It is. People don't know that. People think the TikTok that we are seeing is the same one in China. It's not. It really is not. It really is not. There. No, you're all good, Stephen. I know you're just trying to help, and I appreciate. You know, I do appreciate people do question and challenge things that I say as well. So you know, it's all good. It's all good. Anyways, guys, haven't got much time left, so I'm not going to spend too much on this last topic just because I only wanted to go an hour today, like I said, because I do have other things I need to get done. And like I said, I have an announcement with regards to this series at the end of the show. So I'm not going to read the full article, but I want to talk a little bit about it because it is concerning indeed. So this is from Middle East and I. Turkey is plans a buffer zone if the Iran government falls. So they're drawing up plans to prevent a wave of potential refugees in case of a US attack on Iran. So I should point out that yesterday, the Abraham Lincoln USS aircraft carrier arrived in position in the sea. So they are poised to strike in Iran if they wanted to. As of right now, they can do it. They arrived there yesterday in the sea. So that is obviously, I don't like it at all. It's very, very uncomfortable that they are there, that Donald Trump and this insane administration could issue some kind of strikes inside Iran whenever they want to. Last I checked, the protests have mainly have dropped off. There haven't been any massive protests as last I've checked. I could be wrong. It could have built up again today if someone wants to correct me if I'm wrong. But it's, I am very concerned about this because there's two sides of this I feel about Iran. Like there's a part of me there is like, really the US and other countries, especially Israel, have no business poking Iran and telling them what they can and can't do, and they should be allowed to decide their own future. However, the regime that is in charge of the country are a brutal one, are a nasty one, have killed protesters, and are very, very nasty, and they have not in any way, shape, or form helped the next generation of Iranians when it comes to cost of living crisis, living standards, and whatnot. And also when you have sanctions applied as heavily as the United States and others on your country, it's going to be brutal for them. It's been very, very brutal for Iranian people. You know, and it's them I sympathize more than anything in all this. You know, I always think about the people in this. You know, we can question all we want about the Iranian government, but it's the people who are the ones who are suffering out of this in the end. And they just want to be able to have a decent life of some sorts here. So Turkey is planning to establish a buffer zone on the Iranian side of the border if a worst-case scenario unfolds and the government in Tehran collapses, Middle East and I understands. Top Turkish foreign officials on Thursday briefed lawmakers in a closed-the-door meeting at Parliament, telling them that they are preparing for several potential scenarios regarding Iran, according to two participants who spoke to MEE. So one participant in the briefing said Turkish officials used the term buffer zone to describe Turkey's intention to do everything possible to prevent another wave of refugees entering the country. So obviously what will happen if the government collapses? And lots of people will flee the country, of course. However, a second participant said the officials did not explicitly use the phrase buffer zone, though they expressed a willingness to go beyond their usual measures. Essentially, they said that they believe everything possible should be done on the Iranian side to ensure that those who might come in the event of a migration remain there, a second source said. Now, it's also worth bearing in mind that Turkey has taken its fair share of refugees because, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, these countries here have been through their fair share. Obviously, of course, Gaza. Turkey have taken their fair share of refugees. And the last thing they want is another country collapsing and them having refugees knocking on their door when they've already taken so many. And that's it's fair and it's understandable from their point of view. The Turkish Defense Ministry earlier this month said that they have strengthened security along its 560-kilometer border with Iran through a technological enhanced physical barrier system. The measures include 203 electro-optical towers and 43 elevator-equipped towers, 380 modular concrete walls and defensive ditches. The ministry added that the border areas are monitored around the clock by reconnaissance and surveillance systems, including drones and aircraft. Turkish media reportedly said that during the same briefing, Turkish officials also told lawmakers that around 4,000 Iranians had been killed and 20,000 were wounded during the bloody protests against the government earlier this month. This is what they're claiming. This is what Turkish officials have told lawmakers, apparently. It's triggered by rapid inflation and the sharp depreciation of Iran's currency. The protests quickly spread throughout the country, although there were incidents of violence by some protesters. Several investigations and pieces of footage indicate that Tehran used disproportionate force to suppress the demonstrations. It has also imposed the internet blackout. So that's currently the situation right now, where with Turkey obviously are preparing for any and all situations. And like I said, Turkey have already taken their fair share of refugees. And obviously Turkey are another gateway into Europe as well. It's also worth bearing that in mind as well, because people try to go through Turkey as well, which is very difficult. Not just obviously across the Mediterranean, but some people do try to do that as well, which is much more difficult to do so there as well. I don't have much hope about peace in Iran. I don't know if the current regime are going to survive or not. I think it's just about a case of whether time will tell whether they will there. Everybody just wants to have a decent and peaceful life. Unfortunately, there are those who think that they are better than everyone else and expect us to follow the stupidity, disruptive behavior. Absolutely, Kirsty. Unfortunately, there is that. When you get a taste of real power and money, it can really influence people into thinking and doing certain things. And then the word greedy gets to mind. People get greedy and they want more and more and more there. So there is a bit of that as well. So yeah, I do agree with that as well. I tried to move the algorithm to scroll past these and reply to the ones that make sense as Indie Duck now. Yep. Ignore that. Oh, I'll comment on that. Ignore that. Okay, guys. Before I go to the announcement at the end of this series, for the end of this show, sorry, got the funny memes to come for, guys. I've got 4 for you guys. I can't remember if I do 4 or 5 funny memes, but this is something I always do for this series. So you guys can decide for yourselves whether you find these memes funny or not. But here are the 4 funny memes I've got for you guys. Cross fingers that the scroll bar works properly this time around here. So for those who don't watch this series here, I always do funny memes at the end of this show for Global News. Just something a little bit different to the other live streams to kind of add to it. So hopefully you guys will get more of a... Hope you guys find these ones funny of some sorts, but let's see how it goes here, guys. I don't think customers will come in today. The customer. They'll be like, can't believe they got y'all working today. I know that feeling. As someone who worked in retail, I know that feeling. We just overthrown the government of Brazil. We apologise to those who have been served a misleading message from the fake Chingilia account. We have not overthrown a government since 1954. I love that. It's so funny. Oh, dear. A werewolf. A werewolf? A werewolf. And a werewolf. Get it? No. I don't know I don't know if you guys feeling that wolfy one there. You have to let me know in the comments. Are you a werewolf? A werewolf? A werewolf? Or a werewolf? When you just put in 8 hours of work and your boss asks if you can stay an extra hour. Oh, I'm feeling woozy here, boss. After you put in 8 hours, you're asked to do an extra hour. Will you do it? Those are your funny memes for today, guys. Do that what you may of them. Nope, don't get it, Sigliskin. Damn it. I tried. So I tried to find some odd ones and whatnot, but yeah. So sometimes they work, sometimes they work, and sometimes they don't. They're hit and misses. Let me put it that way, guys. They're hit and misses. Right, so before we head out, guys, so next week is episode 100 of this series, and it will be the last show of Global News. I will not be doing live streams, an afternoon live stream or evening live streams on Tuesdays anymore. Next week is the last one. So the reason why I've made this decision to do it, I thought, you know what, guys, I do 5 live streams every morning, Monday to Friday, and we do at least, and we've been doing at least 4 extra live streams throughout the week. So I've been doing 9 live streams a week for you guys, okay? And while I do value this series, and I do value the importance of covering news outside the UK, the time slot, I've just not been able to find a suitable time slot for me to be doing this live stream. And I also since I've been earning revenue from my other work in the wrestling page, I also want to make sure that I give it plenty of time. And Tuesdays is normally the days where I'm able to give it that. It's been very difficult for me to do that while also doing 2 live streams on a Tuesday. So in that instance, this is why I'm not going to be doing any live streams on Tuesday afternoons going forward. So which means that after next week, because next week will be the last one of this series, episode 100, I won't be doing another. There won't be another Global News for. I don't know if there'll be a future live stream or series of this. It's possible I may do it. I may host it on a Thursday or a random one off the bounds. But as for me doing live streams on Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening, I'm not going to be doing them anymore after next week, guys. So what that means is essentially you will have, in terms of live streams, guys, from after next week, you will have Monday to Friday. You'll have your Good Morning shows, followed by Prime Minister's Questions on Wednesday. You will have The Viewpoint, which we always do on Monday evening. That will never change. I will always do a show on Monday evening. We have a show on Wednesday evening with the Watch Along series, and then we will always have a show on Thursday night. Now, whether that is with a roundtable, or whether that's with me and One Angry Pagan, or a non-politics live stream, or whatever, I will always do a show on Thursday nights for you guys. So you're guaranteed at least, that will be a guarantee at least 8 live streams for you guys there. Okay, so that's why I won't be doing this series anymore. But next week's one, episode 100, will be the last one, guys, of this series. And when I started this this series, it was first called the Snowflake Corner or something like that. I started it because I wanted to learn more about outside the UK, and I felt like I've learned a lot about news outside the UK. And this doesn't mean that I ain't still going to be learning about stuff outside the UK, because as you guys know, there's plenty to talk about the US as well. There's still going to be content I'm going to be recording for Patreon and Rumble and whatnot, but I just don't feel I can give enough of this live stream anymore. So that's why I've made the decision not to do it anymore from next week. So if you can, do join me for next week's final global news. I might do an extended series, like a 2-hour one instead of a short one. We'll go for an extended period from like 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, so we can cover lots of different stories and whatnot. So if you could join me for the last one, please feel free to do so. But I want to say finally, thank you guys all for coming along. Thank you guys so for all your comments. It's so wonderful to see so many people turn up for this series, because this series is always, I call it the quiet live stream, because I always get less than 10 viewers, and it's lovely to see so many people turn up for this live stream. So I really appreciate you guys coming out here. So thank you guys again. I really, really appreciate it. I'll be back live again tomorrow at 11 a.m. for another Good Morning Show. Do check out the Bin podcast. They'll probably be going live as we speak. Also check out Graham Hughes and Bowler Hatman with Geoscopes later on. And Max Robespierre Cross Fingers will be going live at 8:30 tonight. So do check out all these wonderful content creators as well and the work that they do. But on your way out, if you can for me, please hit that like button, share us across social media, subscribe if you haven't to already, and as well check out all the links down below if you want to find me across any other social medias. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.